Labour plotters without candidate. Imagine planning a coup but forgetting the most important detail: who you're actually installing as the new leader. That's exactly where Labour MPs find themselves right now, claiming they have enough support to launch a leadership challenge against Keir Starmer, but admitting they haven't actually decided who would replace him. It's like planning a wedding without a bride, organizing a heist without deciding what you're stealing, or writing a murder mystery where you forgot to include the detective. It's political plotting so incompetent it would be hilarious if it wasn't determining who runs the country. So, settle in, because we're about to dissect the most spectacularly disorganized leadership plot in recent political history, where Labour MPs have the numbers but not the candidate, where patience is wearing thin but nobody can agree on who should take over, and where the only thing more useless than the current leader might be the people trying to replace him. This is Labour in 2025, and honestly, at this point, they should just skip the leadership contest and go straight to a raffle. Right, let's start with the basic mechanics, because understanding how Labour leadership challenges work is crucial to appreciating just how ridiculous this situation is. Under party rules, you need 20% of Labour MPs to back a challenger to trigger a leadership election. With Labour's current representation in the Commons, that means 81 MPs need to get behind a single candidate. Not 81 MPs who think Starmer should go, but 81 MPs who all agree on the same replacement. That's a crucial distinction that the plotters seem to have overlooked. Senior MPs and Labour's soft-left Tribune group are claiming they've reached that threshold, which sounds impressive until you realise they've apparently done this without actually picking who they're supporting. It's like collecting signatures for a petition without writing what the petition is about. The organisational competence here is absolutely stunning, and not in a good way. One Tribune group member told The Times that patience among MPs is wearing thin following a series of concerning polls. They specifically said, "It's all about the polls. We can't be below 20% at the polls for much longer. We can't carry on like this past May if the elections are as bad as the polls show." Which is entirely reasonable sentiment, except for the minor detail that being worried about polls doesn't automatically produce a credible alternative leader. A source close to the Tribune group claimed they have the numbers to put a candidate into a leadership contest, but another member warned that the public wouldn't be favorable toward a destructive leadership challenge. So they've got the numbers, maybe, except they're worried it would be destructive, and also they don't have a candidate. This is strategic thinking at its finest, folks. This is the kind of planning that makes you wonder how these people got elected in the first place. The really telling part is that senior MPs involved admit they haven't united behind a single candidate, which raises an obvious question. How do you know you have 81 MPs ready to back a challenger if you don't know who the challenger is? Are these MPs just signing a blank check saying, "We'll support whoever, just get rid of Starmer"? Because that's not how leadership contests work, and it's definitely not how you build a stable government afterward. Let's talk about why they're plotting, because the context is genuinely dire for Starmer. Last month, YouGov's political favorability tracker showed him with a negative 51 rating, which is catastrophically bad. That's not just unpopular, that's most people actively dislike you territory. Since winning power in a landslide victory, his ratings have sunk faster than a lead balloon in the Mariana Trench, and Labour has consistently polled behind Reform UK, which should be impossible for a governing party with a massive majority. Rachel Reeves' budget next week is expected to be unpopular, despite scrapping the controversial income tax hike, which tells you everything about the Labour's current position. Even when they U-turn on unpopular policies, people still expect the outcome to be bad. That's not a government with public confidence, that's a government that's lost all credibility. The government has also been forced to row back on welfare reforms following a rebellion, and now faces potential pushback over Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's asylum system overhaul. They're not just unpopular with voters, they're struggling to control their own MPs. That's the perfect storm for leadership speculation, except perfect storms usually have some kind of plan for what comes after the destruction. The May local elections are being treated as a crucial moment, with a wipeout expected to pile further pressure on the government. If Labour gets hammered in those elections, and current polling suggests they absolutely will, the calls for Starmer to go will become deafening. But those calls are somewhat less effective if nobody can agree on who should replace him. Last week's briefing war added another layer of chaos to this whole mess. Allies of Starmer warned that removing him would be disastrous, which sparked speculation about his position being under threat. They reportedly accused Wes Streeting of plotting a leadership challenge. Streeting denied it and called out Number 10 for briefing against him. And Starmer had to apologize. It's the kind of internal warfare that makes a government look weak and divided, which doesn't exactly help when you're trying to prove you should stay in charge. The list of potential successors is interesting because it reveals the problem. There's no obvious heir apparent. Ed Miliband has already been Labour leader and lost an election, so bringing him back would be admitting you've got no fresh ideas. Shabana Mahmood is currently implementing controversial asylum reforms that will make her unpopular with chunks of the party. Wes Streeting is charismatic and competent but has been tainted by the briefing war allegations. Louise High is a backbencher, which would be a huge leap. None of these candidates are obviously better positioned than Starmer was when he won the leadership, which might explain why 81 MPs can't agree on who to back. They all want change, but they can't agree on what that change should look like. It's the political equivalent of knowing you want to redecorate, but having completely different ideas about whether you're going minimalist, maximalist, or burning the house down and starting over. Starmer's response to all this has been to insist that distractions meant our focus shifted from where it mattered most, working every day in the service of the British people, which is politician speak for stop talking about whether I'm rubbish and focus on the policies I'm implementing. Except the policies are also unpopular, so that's not really solving the problem. His spokesperson added that the budget would prioritize rebuilding the economy and showing what the government stands for, and that people were rightly impatient for change. The messaging is trying to position Starmer as focused on delivery, while his critics are focused on destabilizing the government. But when your own MPs are plotting against you, that message doesn't land quite as effectively as you'd hope. The claim that they need to work as one team is particularly hollow when senior MPs are openly discussing having the numbers for a leadership challenge. That's not one team, that's at least two teams actively working against each other while pretending to be unified. It's the political equivalent of a football team where half the players are trying to score on their own goal. What makes this whole situation so absurd is the combination of genuine discontent with complete organizational incompetence. The plotters have identified a real problem. Starmer's popularity is in the toilet, and Labour is heading for electoral disaster. But their solution is to launch a leadership challenge without a candidate, which is like diagnosing a disease correctly but forgetting to actually prescribe medicine. The warning that the public wouldn't be favorable toward a destructive leadership challenge is almost funny in its obviousness. Of course, voters don't want to see a governing party tear itself apart in a leadership contest barely a year after winning power. But voters also don't want a leader with -51 favorability ratings. It's a lose-lose situation where doing nothing is bad, but doing something might be worse. The May elections are now functioning as a deadline of sorts. If Labour gets destroyed in those elections, the pressure for change becomes overwhelming.